United Abomination was clearly an hint, a stepping stone, I would say, for Megadeth going back at his better shape, you know. But once again, Endgame goes beyond any expectations, and while you still keep like the melodic thing you developed since Countdown to Extinction, it's also definitely goes back to the thrash metal sound you had before, you know. So,
Yeah.
So what brings you back to this thrash metal approach, you know?
Well, a long time ago, when Marty Friedman was still in the band, after we had done the record Risk, I told Marty, I said, you know what, man, we have to go back to our roots. We have to play heavy metal. That's what Megadeth is. That's what the fans want. And we can't keep doing this experimental stuff where we're playing music that's a little bit slower and stuff that's more reliant on melodies, because it's not that the fans don't appreciate that. It's that we're really good at playing heavy and fast stuff, and that's what the fans respect us for. So I obviously learned quite a lot. I was able to experience a lot as a musician. The fans were really, they were very kind to me to be able to allow me to spread my wings and try some other musical ideas. Although there were a lot of people that were really mean and said a lot of shit about Risk and about some of those other records. But, I mean, the bottom line is, music is music. There's a lot of people that like Risk. I like it. I don't think it should have been called a Megadeth record because it wasn't really Megadeth music, but, you know, the same thing like The System Has Failed. I recorded that record pretty much by myself with some session guys, and in the studio, the publishing company told me, well, we're glad you're doing a solo record, but you still owe us another Megadeth record, and we own you forever until you give us that record. And I thought, you know, forever's a long fucking time. So I changed it back from a solo record to a Megadeth record on the spot. Some people didn't like that, but the point is, The System Has Failed sounds like a Megadeth record.
Yeah, it's a good
and
record.
I think that for me, being able to look out and see the beautiful faces of our fans when we play songs, whether they're fast or slow, you can usually tell from your fans what songs are your more successful songs. And the ones that we have the most fun playing are the ones that are the most aggressive.
And this is the first record, obviously, with Chris Broderick.
Uh-huh.
And you had many guitar players in the past, so how would you describe Chris' adaptation to the Megadeth world, you know? Did he fit quickly, or, you know?
Chris fit in pretty well. You know, obviously when he came into the band, just like every other musician we've had, you know, they thought that it was going to be easier than it really is. And, you know, when Chris came and met with me, when I went to audition him, he showed up in my house, he played a little bit, and then I said, okay, let's go downstairs into my garage now. And I went down to my garage, and I had this weight machine that I was using, you know, for like a gymnasium.
Yeah.
And I was putting the machine together because I just bought it. And I asked Chris to come help me because, you know, he's a weightlifter. And I figured, shit, I'm not going to lift all that stuff. So he and I went downstairs and went into my garage, and we spent about 2-3 hours putting this gym together, and we just became so close over doing that because we did something that two people have to work together on. They have to follow direction, and we both had an interest in it because I'm very healthy and so is Chris. So when it was all done, we realized, you know what, we can work together. We actually get along together really well. It's not just guitar playing.
And yeah, and Shawn Drover, he did a hell of a job on this new album.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did.
Like his playing was more straightforward on the previous one, but it's way more complex this time. So did you push him to play that way?
Well, on the first record he did, one of the things that you might want to think about is that Shawn had only done 2 concerts in his life before he met me.
Okay.
And we did that first show in Reno. He had to go to the hospital that night because he got vertigo. And I was pretty surprised because when he came back from the hospital, I said, what's going on with you? And he goes, oh, I got vertigo. Well, how did you get that? I don't know, man. This is only my third concert. Third concert? What? Ah! And I was thinking, oh my God, if you would have told me you'd only done 2 concerts before we went on stage, we probably wouldn't have went on stage.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, he did such a great job on the new one. Really, it really step up, really, I think.
Well, I got to tell you something about Shawn Drover.
Yeah.
When David Ellefson and I parted ways, I thought it was going to be really hard to fill Junior's shoes because he was a good bass player, and he was my partner, and he really helped a lot with some of the stuff that I needed to do in the band. You know, he was kind of like an ambassador.
Yeah.
And then when he left, you know, I had to let him go because my arm was hurt. I didn't think I was going to be able to replace him very easy. So we got James McDonough, and that was part of how, why I was thinking it's not going to be that easy because, you know, McDonough was a good bass player, but we just didn't get along very well because, you know, he's kind of like a little band leader, you know what I mean? And a guy that's got that leadership quality, it's kind of hard for them to be in a band when they got to answer to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know? So when James Lomenzo came in, James fit right in, assumed his position as a bass player. He can play bass as good as Ellefson can because, you know, you've got to really be somebody special like Steve Harris or, you know, somebody like Jaco Pastorius or you know, to be a bass player that really stands out. You know, Cliff Burton stood out. James is standing out on his own because not only does he play good, he sings good. You remember he came from White Lion, and one of the things that White Lion had were hit singles. Well, how did they have all those hit singles? Well, because of all the hooky melodies, the singing and stuff like that. Vito was a good guitar player, but he wasn't, you know, as good as Chris is or I am. Yeah. And when James came in, we got the bass playing part back, but we still didn't have the ambassador part that Ellefson had brought. And then Shawn, I didn't even notice it. He had assumed that role. He's like the ambassador that Ellefson was, but you know, Junior was always trying to be me, and it caused problems because even though we were partners, you know what? There's only one Dave Mustaine, just like there's only one David Ellefson, you know. And when you're always fighting to get attention, it causes problems. And Shawn isn't fighting for attention; he's fighting for the band's success. James isn't fighting for attention; he's fighting for the band's success. We all get along great, and I think you can hear that in the new record.
Yeah, sure.
Now, Chris is the best guitar player I've played with. Marty is a genius. Marty's better than I am. Glenn is really good. He's better than I am, too. But as far as songwriting is concerned, that's a gift I have. And, you know, being able to play with great players like this, it only makes a person better.
And also, you worked with many producers in the past, and it seems you eventually find your favorite with Andy Sneap, you know. So what makes Andy better than the other?
Well, I've worked with a lot of producers more than once. I worked with Max Norman 3 times. He mixed Rust in Peace. He co-produced Countdown to Extinction and co-produced Youthanasia with me. But as with all things, if you tend to rely too much on any kind of a formula, it starts to sound like you're relying on a formula.
Yeah.
And I didn't want the fans to feel like the record was going to be the same every time. Now, one of the problems when we worked with Max that led to me parting ways with him was slowing the songs down. I mean, you can see in the Evolver video, Max is holding a metronome, and he's counting. He's counting how many beats a minute the songs are. And he slowed all the songs down, and I didn't like that. So when we did the remasters, some of the songs I was capable of speeding them up a little bit, and some of the ones that couldn't have that done to it were left like they were. But my feeling for that stuff is that when you have a production team, it's 2 people working together. That's what happened with Dan Huff, too. We were working together, and he started doing stuff on his own and not telling me. He changed one of Marty Friedman's solos and didn't tell Marty.
Marty's listening to the finished version, and his solo had been taken out of the song because management didn't like it. And they asked me to replace it. So I did, after much arguing, and when Marty was listening to the song back in the control room, and it was time for his solo to be played, Marty was so excited about Breadline. This is the most excited I'd seen him about a song in a long time. And when the solo came up, you could hear a pin drop in the room because Dan Huff did not tell Marty that he changed his solo. And I said, I would redo the solo, but you have to tell him. And he didn't tell him. And Marty started crying, and I was so mad because I didn't want to hurt Marty. And we just don't do that stuff anymore. If we have a relationship with a producer that looks like it's going that way, it's going to be just like any other relationship in Megadeth. If it looks like it's going south, we're going to try and save it. If it's not something that you can save, we're going to try and get out before the whole thing comes crashing down.
And so on this record you got Dialectic Chaos, which is your first instrumental song since So Far So Good So What. So
Right.
was it a big challenge to write once again this type of song?
Not really. When you write instrumental songs, the funny thing is, most people think it's easy to write an instrumental because there's no words on it. It couldn't be farther from the truth. It's harder to write a song with no words than it is to write a song with words, because the words are a distraction for the listener. And the listener can be listening to the song, and the melody can go right by them without them even hearing it because they're focusing in on the words. For example, there are so many songs on the radio that are the same exact song as somebody else's, but they just change the vocals a little bit.
Yeah, right.
One of the things that my family, when I was with them, I would listen to the radio with them, and when we would drive around, and my daughter and my ex-wife liked to listen to the country channel a lot, and I noticed, because I'm listening to music, the music part, and the top 20 songs that are on the country charts right now, there's 2 songs that are exactly identical, and I don't know why they're not suing each other. And that's the beauty about metal. Metal is so complicated and so aggressive and so personal that if I write a song and somebody else has a song that sounds like what I wrote, then you know what? They're copying me. Period. Because there's no way that heavy metal artists, as difficult as we try and make our music, it's if you have a song that sounds like another heavy metals band's, the chances of that just being random, I don't believe it.
And you've got this song, This Day We Fight, which to me is already a new classic for the band, and I guess it will open all your future shows,
We're not opening with that. Well, I wanted people, when they listen to this record, to just know from the beginning, hey, we're actually going to be in for something special now. This isn't another heavy metal record that's just crazy lyrics and screaming guitar solos. This is another one of those records that, every once in a while a record will come by and it'll mean something. For example, with me, I've had 3 records so far in my career that were really pivotal records in the music business. It was Peace Sells, Rest in Peace, and Countdown to Extinction. Yeah. Those were all 3 huge records, and I have a feeling. Now, I'm not sure about this, but I have a feeling that Endgame is going to be another one of those records.
Sure.
I hope so, because I'm really proud of it.
And in all this punishing thrash madness, you bring dynamic in the middle with us and some fresh air with the harder part of Letting Go, and it seems like this song is more personal, right? Yeah,
it is. The funny thing is, when I wrote that song, I was still married, and my wife said, we've been together for 18 years and you've never written a song for me. And I said, yeah, I have. You just don't like Megadeth music, so you don't know. And so I said, okay, well, I'll write another one. And this song was about me meeting her, and the irony of this is that when she heard the song, she didn't like it. And our marriage has ended since then. Not because of that, because of a lot of stuff, but I can honestly say that was really a shock. You know, when you write a song for a person and you say, hey, here it is, and it's such a beautiful song, for someone to say, I don't like it. Yeah, well, I don't understand it because, you know, regardless of whoever the song was written for, it's a very emotional song, and I think that it really describes a very private part of me that I haven't really shared with anybody. You know, I still have tremendous respect for my ex, and she gave me 2 wonderful children, but the path has just run out of road.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe someday we'll hook up again. And
Anyway, it's personal matter. I won't go further into that. You know.
Thank you.
And yeah, so let's back to the music. And yeah, you recently said you will probably try to change the set list night after night on the next tour and play some really obscure songs from the back catalog. So, do you have any names for us?
Of the songs?
Yeah, the songs you must try from the back catalog.
Well, yeah. Of course I know the names.
Yeah.
Can I tell you them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we went back to the very first record, to Killing, and we went over every record and listened to the tempos, to the voice, because, you know, when you sing, your vocal cords change over time. It's just part of life. So, some of the songs I could sing when I was in my 20s, I can't sing in, you know, today. My voice has just changed. It's not that I won't sing, I mean that I can't sing them, it's just it doesn't sound as good as the ones that are within my range. However, I've been doing something that I really have benefited a lot from. When we were out on tour with Machine Head, I was listening to Rob warm up in the room next to me, and he'd be like, la 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 la, and then he'd go out there, and I thought, well, that's pretty interesting because, you know, you're hearing him warm up, and he sounds like he's a normal singer, and then he goes out on stage and he rages. So I figured maybe there's something to this, and I got a tape, and I downloaded it into my dressing room stereo, and then I started warming up before I went on stage, and it really, really worked, because I used to do some small warm-ups, but nothing like I do now. And I owe that to Rob. Thanks, Rob.
Cool. So you won't reveal any names of the...
Oh, I can tell you. The songs that we've looked at is, like on the first record, we looked at adding These Boots Are Made for Walking because it was a fun song for us to play. And I'm just going off memory because I can't see the list right now. The second record, let's see, we talked about Bad Omen, we talked about Black Friday, we talked about My Last Words.
Good one.
Third record so far, we talked about Hook and Mouth and Liar. Rust in Peace, we talked about Five Magics.
Cool.
And I know we've done Lucretia, but I don't know if that's on the list or not.
My personal request, if you mind, I love, there's a song on Youthanasia I really love. It's Addicted to Chaos. And I'm not sure you even play it live ever.
I don't think we've ever played that live, but I can tell you that that's not on the list.
Yeah, that is really
I like
good
that song too. It actually was a song that I wrote the day that I found out the best man at my wedding. He was a drug counselor, and I met him through a place I'd gone to get help, and we became friends. And the reason I liked him was he was a bank robber, and he'd robbed a couple of banks, and he'd actually murdered a couple of people, a security guard in the bank. I don't like the fact that he was a murderer, but he seemed like an outlaw, like a gangster, and it just seemed, wow, in the presence of a real bad guy, a real bank robber, you know, and I mean, you can tell from me writing about 44 Minutes too, bank robbery, those kind of things, they always have intrigued me. Anyway, so when I found out that he died, it really, really shocked me. And that's what that song, Addicted to Chaos, is about. The guy that's telling me one day you'll walk alone was John, the best man at my wedding. Now, I know that a lot of people probably thought that Junior was going to be my best man. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, you got to be a best man to be a best man, and he wasn't my best man. He was my bass player, and he was my friend, But in the same token, he had his brother at his wedding, which I totally think was the right thing to do.